Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Home Buyers Bootcamp session. Welcome. And of course, the objective of these sessions is to just empower you as a home buyer with the knowledge that you need to confidently purchase your home, right? So today we're going to have a panel discussion with some very learned gentlemen. They're very experienced. So in the order in which you would normally meet them, I'm just going to go through each and they're going to introduce themselves. So I have first up with me our Covisha land surveyor, Mr. Johan Wilson. So Mr. Wilson, come, come now and just introduce yourself to the
Good,
audience.
good, af good afternoon or good evening to all. As
There's
Mr.
no video.
Oh, my apologies. Good evening, good afternoon to all. My name is Johan Wilson, as mentioned previously. This is going to be a first for me. I have never been on a panel as yet. Have 20 years of experience in the industry. And so I am here just to, as I said, help, as Mr. Terrelonge said, to help pass on my knowledge so that your home buying experience will be as smooth as possible and a seamless one as possible as it relates to the surveying aspect of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. So next we have, in order that you would meet them, especially if you're building your own home, because you know that's more affordable, as it seems in Jamaica option these days. So we also have Mr. Omar Hibbert, architectural technologist. Mr. Hibbert, just go ahead and over introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good
No
afternoon to
video.
our host, Ms. Terrelonge.
Omar,
Panelists, good afternoon.
1 second, Omar. No
Yes.
video. So they're seeing your beautiful
But
logo, but they're not seeing you.
they're not seeing me
No.
because my video is on.
It seems like you're sharing the
Wow.
logo.
Oh,
I just helps with I
yeah.
believe with connecting when they can actually see who they're speaking with. All right, so until Omar figures that out, we also have our contractor in the house, Mr. Rohan Dawkins. I'll tell you from now, I'm going to refer to him somehow subconsciously as elder. That's because he's an elder in our church. All right, so oh, there you are, Omar. So go ahead with your intro. You came
All
on
right,
board now.
great. So I'm Omar Hibbert, and I'm an architectural technologist, as Mr. Terrelonge just said. I help colleagues and home builders get their plan from conception to approval. And for my business, OAH Drafting Studio Services, we specialize in modernist and minimalist designs. And I have been in business for close to 2 decades. So
You
as
discovered the
the,
fountain of youth. Very good
sorry?
job. You have discovered the fountain of youth. I will link you afterwards.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we'll hear further as the discussion
Yeah.
progresses.
All right. Thanks so much, Mr. Bird. Elder, as I said before, Elder Dawkins, go ahead with your intro.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rohan Dawkins. I'm a general contractor. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. As I said, I'm a general contractor. I'm a certified one. And I love to build and create things. So you see why I am in the construction industry. So yes, that's basically what I do.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sir Dawkins. So we're going to the format as we usually do is to have each of our participants, they'll have a one-on-one discussion first, and then after we've discussed with all three gentlemen, we'll open the floor and we'll have our discussion. All right, so Mr. Wilson, back to you. So why is it important for us to survey a property before we purchase it here in Jamaica?
All right. Put it this way. The first thing is to make sure that what is on the title is what you're actually buying on ground. And why I said on ground, because back then they used to sell you on the paper. So when you're going to the seller's office, they have a subdivision plan and you used to just pick off. It's really after then you used to go on ground to check out your property.
Okay.
Yes, and that is one of the reasons why the surveyor's report was invented. It was invented. So you need to know, that's where the surveyors come in now. We are your safeguard to make sure that, for example, if they say your property is 13 Westminster Road, it's actually 13 Westminster Road you are buying, not somewhere else. Which I have come across a couple of those situations where you're buying A, but when I turn up based on all the records, you're further down the road. Yes.
And then there's a whole lot of confusion thereafter. So how would persons go about ordering a surveyor's report now?
Well, the very first thing, you need to have some information as it relates to the land. Like, for example, the title information, the volume and folio numbers, or even the valuation number can help us out. The civic address also. Once you come
What's
to
the civic address? Sorry.
the civic address, sometimes like for in Kingston and the townships, like for example, my office is 19 Radials Road. That's your civic address.
Okay.
So sometimes
Oh, the address as we know it.
Well, yes, sorry, that's what they call it, your civic address.
Okay.
Because other industry use different things, but civic address is what the postal person will say.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So it's going to have the volume and folio, and then we will just come into you at your, I don't think we had mentioned your office.
Oh, my
Your
office is 19 Redders Road in Kingston. We're opposite the trade center.
That's Leslie B Mae Associates. Okay.
Yes, correct.
And of course, once you come in with that info, then all of that would be sorted. So what's the average cost of getting a surveyor's report?
Well, there's no such thing as the average cost because the surveyor's report is a 0.3% of the market value to a point. So for example, if you reach a certain level, like if the property is 100 million or such forth, start to decrease in terms of the percentage. So for example, if the property is valued at $20 million, you're looking at a surveyor's report cost of $60,000.
Okay, so 0.03, I'd said point.
Yes, yeah, 0.03%.
Oh,
0.3. Yes.
Sorry, 0.3%. Okay.
Yes. Well, I would love to do 3%, but no, that is not part of the industry. So,
would be a whole lot of problems with all the other parts we have to do.
So it started at 0.3%, and I said it decreases. It decreases. So it doesn't stick at 0.3 plus. It depends also where the property is located, but I have to put in expense, like traveling to certain property, and also it goes with the size of the property. For a regular scheme house, that 0.3% will suffice. But when you start to go like 5 acres and larger properties, that's a different, yes.
Because then you have to be walking through more land, pretty much, as setting up your equipment.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not really a standard price.
Oh, okay. So how long would it take for someone to get a surveyor's report done?
Well, typically I will tell persons 3 to 4 days. That's if everything is perfect. If I go and there's no issue with the land, 3 to 4 days. If any issue, I might have to revisit the property more than once, twice, 3 times, just to make sure at the end of the day, when I give you a report, I am satisfied that the report is good. So minimum 3 to 4 days, sometimes even a day, depending on the turnaround time. Sometimes I day, but I usually tell clients 3 to 4 days.
And that's 3 to 4 business days.
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. 3 to 4 days. Put it that way.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So what are, you had mentioned them or hinted at them. So what are some of the issues that buyers should watch out for?
Very first one is to make sure in terms of encroachments and breaches of the title. So as in terms of encroachment is that your neighbor is not encroaching onto your land. So somebody doesn't build across the boundary. So in some cases where I have seen with myself, with my eyes, is that the house, one person house, is down the middle of the property. So it's on 2 lots.
Okay.
Yes, I have seen that.
Like
So
the whole half of the house is on somebody else's land.
yes. Due to the fact that sometime in the subdivision, everything is also a rectangle. And you might go and find a peg. Somebody might go and find a peg, string a cord, get the distance they're looking for, and start building. But it's not the location for the property. So encroachment in that regards are some major issue. And also breaches in terms of the setback distances as it relates in the restrictive covenants that is set out in the title. So for example, you might have a restrictive covenant stated that no closer than 5 feet to the boundaries. And that includes the eve of the property, except for certain parts in Portmore that they exclude the eve, where they state that the eve is not considered as part of the
What
building.
they said, the what, the eve?
Yes, the eve is not considered as part of the building in certain parts of Portmore.
What they call the eve? Like the
That little
overhang?
yes, the little overhang. That's what
Okay.
we call the eve. So in
May I
terms
try to make sure say it get very broken down so that everybody can catch it.
okay, yes, that little hangover. So in terms, as I said before, if the building says, if the setback says 5 feet, the feet of the building must be at 5 feet from the boundary, not 4.5 feet, not 3 feet. If it's 3 feet, 4.5 feet, you're in breach of the restrictive covenants. And that is going to be an issue in terms of getting loans from the bank or even to go through with the sale of the property.
So what other services would you provide as a land surveyor?
Well, I provide pre-check diagrams. That is what you need. For example, if you have a virgin piece of property, that there is no paper for the property, I will come in, survey the diagram, survey the property, submit a diagram for approval at the survey department, which is located at NLA. Once that diagram is approved, you can take that now and apply for a title for that property. Also, we also do subdivisions. So if you want to splinter a property, if you have some money put on and you have a 5 acre, 10 acre, even 100 acre property and you want to subdivide it into smaller lots, provide that services. Also engineering works, setting out of building, road construction, drone mapping also.
Okay.
That's part of my work also.
Oh, never knew about that. Well, the drone mapping.
Yes.
Is that like something that's done a part of when you're identifying a plot, or is it just something that's separate if it's like?
It's depending on what you need. It's not typically done for surveyor's report, but it depends on what you want. So if your client comes in now, especially, I'm seeing more and more clients in terms of large lots, large parcels like 10 acres and higher, they are looking for that service. So at least they can have a bird eye view of how the property looks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. So again, for those who are joining us in the middle, we'll reserve all the questions to the end after we've had our one-on-one discussion. Well, after I've had my one-on-one discussion with each of our each of our guests for this evening. All right, so now we move to our architectural technologist, Mr. Omar Hibbert. Yeah, so why is it important to get architectural plans before we start constructing? Why we can't just build out our head like, you have a vision, your dream overnight, and you say, yeah, you put up your two-bedroom. Why we can't just start and just build?
Well, sure. Well, I would never recommend anyone to just start building. The main purpose of having a plan before construction, one, is that it's a legal binding document between yourself and the government, which protects you as a landowner or the intended property builder and the government. So it protects you. The next thing, it safeguards in terms of structure. So the design would include structural supports for the entire building house in this matter. It will also enable smooth permit process. So when you submit to the parish council, they will review the document and ensure that it abides or follows international codes. And this, well, one of them I could mention is that ICC, International Code Council. So these are regulatory bodies which are established, which has these locally binding principles, codes, zoning, a number of things other than what I just mentioned. So it protects you and it ensures that the building is built to a certain standard that it can, for instance, in our region, the Caribbean environment, it ensures that the building can withstand hurricanes or earthquakes. The recent earthquake that we had last year in October, we noticed where a structure in a particular parish crumbled. And that was because it was not approved by the municipal council. And there were breaches in terms of the building construction of the property. And it's a lot of waste right there. Another thing, it minimizes dispute between the building team. When I say building team, I mean the contractor and the stakeholders. So what would happen is that the drawing would have to be vetted or assessed by a QS, what we know as a quantity surveyor. So the quantity surveyor will review the drawing in its entirety and come up with a figure, established figure calculated based on the height, length, depth, width of the different sections of the building, even the windows, doors, and other finishes like tiles, faucets. So those things are calculated by the quantity surveyor known as a bill of quantity. So this document is then submitted to the lending institution or even to the supplier to guide them in terms of the amount of material that will be required to get the structure complete in a fair time and also according to what is designed. So that is it in a nutshell.
Oh, okay. All right. So, what would clients need to give you to get their plans drawn?
All right, so first of all, the process would include a site visit. So the client would need to provide a lot number, as our member just said, Mr. Wilson. It starts with him. So as an architectural technologist or designer, we will need to visit the site to see the constraints, meaning the highs and lows, the pros and cons, what is possible from what is not possible. For example, if the land is slow, you would need an engineer to design the structural support for the structure, the building, the house. If the land is fairly gentle slope, then it wouldn't necessarily require an engineer to design beams and columns. But if it's, for example, in the Red Hills area Belvedere area, you would require an engineer's structural design. So that's one. The other one is that space requirement. This is where the land surveyor comes in, and then he will do his measurement. So I will require a surveyor's diagram. Another thing we require is the title. So the title will show ownership. We have had situations where persons come in, say they want to build a house, and the land doesn't belong to them. So those are legal factors that we have to safeguard against to protect ourselves as builders or designers. And we would like to have registered title and up-to-date tax payment on the property from that individual who intends to build.
Okay. So what's the cost for getting such plans and the timeline for getting their plans back once they contact you?
So the costs vary based on complexity and the size of the building that is to be designed. For a small property, say for those in scheme units, like for example, Portmore. Portmore is developing quite quickly and has developed, and a number of scheme houses have been built in Portmore. So a land, say, varying a size of between 4,000 square feet and probably 5,000 square feet, an addition or construction of about 2,000 square feet. Calling numbers here, I know that most persons may not necessarily get the numbers, but just to give you an idea, that size property, depending on the design, the costs can be, say, a minimum of $100 per square feet for a simple design. A more high-end design would go up to $120, $150 per square feet. And that's for an architectural technologist. Now, if you're using a registered architect, that's a different cost. So most persons would go to a draftsman to get a design done, since it's a smaller unit. But for larger houses, say, well, architectural technologists can also design for large properties, say around 9,000 square feet and upward. In that case, the complexity of the design would require a higher fee.
Like for example, if they have some Roman arches and they want an interior courtyard.
Right. So
And then
that's
some way
a
to make the rain and the sun kind of filter out.
right, right.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah. There was another question. There's another part of
Yeah,
the
some
question.
design tips to help homeowners complete their homes faster and more affordably.
Okay, right. So I'm reading from something I jot down here. So what I recommend, depending on your budget, because the budget is a very, very important factor to consider. So what I recommend is that persons go simple. When I say simple, you go to your regular square or rectangular shaped building. Now, if you want to add a little bit of flair, you could have gentle setbacks, recess. When I say recess and setbacks, I mean like a section of the building projects, say about a foot. And you have a play on a little bit of shape in terms of what the building can look like when it's complete. Design for efficiency, open floor plan. That would mean fewer walls, lower material and labor costs. Use passive design strategies. When I say passive design, I mean like, for example, you have windows that are appropriately sized, and this is also in the building code. They are appropriately sized to allow for ventilation and natural light, so that allows for the building to cool naturally without the use of an air condition or mechanical cooling like a fan or AC.
Like
Another,
to make sure crossbreed sort of deal.
cross
Correct.
ventilation, that's the term, yes.
Sorry,
And
cross ventilation.
cross ventilation, right. So another thing is that you plan thoroughly. So this would mean keeping a contingency plan in case of an escalation in costs, or it's a buffer in terms of cost overrun. Not that it is good to have cost overrun, but you protect yourself against that. So those are the three most important points I want to mention for this case.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Hibbert. Thank you. Thank you. So now we move on to our contractor in the room, Mr. Rohan Dawkins. So, what should I consider when I'm trying to decide whether to buy a house or to buy land and build a house from your many years of experience, Eldo?
Okay, greetings again. All right. First, what you should consider. One, to build a house most times is normally cheaper than to buy a house of the same square footage. So, when you build a house, you would, as we say in Jamaica, you save some money. So it's cheaper to build a house than to buy a house. However, some persons prefer to buy because they can't wait and all of these things. But building a house is always cheaper. Building a house, you get the opportunity to do your own designs, um, style your house the way you want it, choose the colors you want, and just about everything. The type of bathroom you want, the type of master bedroom you want, your kitchen layout, and all of these things. So you have full control of how you want your house to look. That's the good thing about building a house. So with that, it's kind of make it nicer to build a house for me. So yes, so those are some of the things where I'd recommend building a house.
Okay. So if I wanted you, the Dawkins, to build my house, what would I need to do to start the process?
Okay, start the process. All right, as my former panelist had said, there are some things that we need to do. Say for instance, we as Mr. Trying to remember the name, just before me now, said you need
Hibbert.
right, Mr. Hibbert, you need a, a, a plan. You need a bill of quantities. Most persons don't really know what a bill of quantities is. It's a, put it this way, it's a pretty name for an estimate. We maybe understand it better than that. It's a more professional thing. So we need a bill of quantities. We're going to need a plan, approved plan. We need to secure financing for building the house. So we need to know where we're going to get the money from, whether we're going to mortgage, we're going to build it out of our pockets, or we're going to get some money from some rich cousins or something of the sort. So yeah, we need to know where we're going to get money from. So we need financing, we need an approved plan, we we need a contractor. We need a good contractor. Let me put it that way. You need a good qualified contractor. And yes, we need a bit of quantity. So those are mainly the process you need to put together before you actually start thinking of building a house or building a house.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ella. So what are some of the main steps in building a house?
All right. So some of the steps in building, first and foremost, you have the planning stage where you're going to build a house. So before you even start moving, before you start doing anything, you buy the land and you're thinking of that. You need to start doing some feasibility studies on what you want. Know what the house you can afford, what it looks like. You say you approach your mortgage company already, you know you qualify for $10 million. Know what you can get for your $10 million. So you're in the planning stage, so you know you can get a argument say a 2-bedroom house for your $10 million. Look at 2-bedroom houses, look at the layout, the designs, the styles, and all of this. Don't go look at the 12-bedroom house now because you're going to get in trouble. So we're going to look at planning stage where you start looking at house, looking at styles, looking at all of these things so you can kind of get ready. The other thing you do, you secure financing. So as I said, you're going to think about how you're going to afford to build this house, whether it's mortgage or anything like that. You're going to build it out of your pocket, or somebody going to help you, or you're going to join with somebody. So you're going to look at financing. A lot of times, I must say, a lot of times persons just get up and say, yeah, man, I have $5 million. Yeah, man, you can build a house. No, that's recipe for trouble. So we need to look at financing. We need to look at designing and stuff like that. So you would approach the architect, you would have get a plan draw, get it approved by the parish council, because that makes sense in order to keep you from doing things that is illegal, because it can be more costly in the long run. So you get an approved plan, and if it's a terrain that needs engineer, you would get well, I guess you'd work with your architect to get some engineering expertise there. So those are the things you would need, and the steps you would need to build your house.
Okay. So what about the actual construction of a house now?
All right. So now you're ready to build. So once you're ready to build, you get a qualified contractor, because you go through all of the planning stage, you have everything ready. So you need to get a qualified contractor, and he is supposed to give you an estimate. And one thing I must say, get a detailed estimate. Get a detailed estimate, because most of the times, say for instance, a contractor might just give you an estimate saying to do foundation $2 million. The customer might don't understand what that means, and when the contractor start asking for that money, then there is a problem. So get a detailed estimate where you can follow right through to know what you're paying for and what you need to get for your money. So yes, you need a good contractor for that. Your contractor should be so what's the word now? Flexible, so they can kind of take you through the construction phases, because most persons doing construction don't really know what they're really getting into. You don't have the experience, and once you don't have the experience, you will make mistake. So you need a contractor, you need somebody, or even your architect. You need to talk to them so they can kind of give you like a more hands-on experience, kind of walk you through the process, so you understand what you're getting into, and you understand more what the process is. So those are some of the things that you have to look at.
Okay. So what is it that they refer to when they say a building gets to lintel stage? What is that?
Okay.
That's when the walls are up after you put in the foundation.
Right. So you put in the foundation, you do your block work. So in other words, you do your excavation, which is the digging of the foundation, you do your steel work, all of the concrete work, and you start blocking up the property. Now you reach a stage where you actually start seeing the shape out of the windows and the doors. But right on top of the doors and the windows, that's the lintel. So you go so much that you can't go anymore, because you need now to put a wall over the top of the doors and the windows. So that is known as a lintel. So that is one stage of the house. And from you leave lintel, now you go on again until you reach the belt of the house. When you reach the belt, you start thinking of roof now. So those are some of the stages of building the house. And from the roof, you do roof, and after that, depends on the roof you do. If you do decking, which we call it decking, which is a concrete roof. Right. If you do a concrete roof, then you start thinking now of dressing the house. So you start thinking of what kind of finishes you want on your wall. Is it that you're going to uh we have some new finishes now, like Terrelonge, or we're going to do just floating of the wall with just rendering, or different kind of finishes. So we need to know what kind of finishes we're going to do. And so we do finishes now, where we would say flash the wall, which we call a rough cast. So we do rough casting, and then we do dressing, which is rendering. And so the house start looking finished and neat and start looking clean now. You start getting a more refined finish. Thereafter, we start thinking about now like windows and doors and tiles and the finishing aspect of the house. So that's basically the phase of the house.
Okay. So what are some mistakes people make when they're constructing their homes?
All right. Some of the common mistakes persons made. One of the main one I have encountered is underestimating the cost of the construction. So as I said before, we understand sometimes that a person have $7 million because that's what they can get from whether a mortgage company or wherever. But yet the dream is to build a $20 million house. So they most time they start these massive structure and run into trouble where they run out of money, and then you start having problem because the contractor and the customer are going to start having trouble now. Most of the times because they're going to start, sometimes they start blaming the contractor and stuff like that. So one of the things I suggest, as my former colleague has said, get a estimate, get a bill of quantities.
Hmm.
I think I said to my customer, I will do your estimate. And when I do the estimate, sometimes they look at it and things like a contingency, they want to take it off. Because,
Hmm.
for instance, you see $2 million under contingency. What is that $2 million for? I would say to them, leave it alone. Because you don't know what you're going to meet up in construction. You can start on a flat piece of land and you're doing excavation, and just at the back wall, there's a massive stone. Now you need some tractor with hammer to cut it and all of this. That's additional expense. One thing I said to them is that it's better for you to budget $10 million and spend 9 than budget 9 and spend 10. Because once you get a loan for $9 million, now you have a $1 million deficit. You're going to be restless, and that starts creating tension. So it's better to overestimate what you're doing. I'll do a proper estimate and stick to the budget which you have. The other thing is that one other thing I see happening in the market is that person will do, say for instance, just start do construction and you block up the house and pass lintel, as you said, reach the roof, do the decking, and yes, yeah man, so roof up on my house. So they say, yeah, man, finish. And people start getting excited. I remember one gentleman look at me and say, yeah man, we can get our money out of the money for go buy a car. Things like those. People start thinking, yeah, people start
Okay.
know that the house is completed and I have, say for instance, the budget was $10 million. The house is completed and I have $6 million left. Yet they don't realize that the latter end of the house is more expensive
The
than the
finishing.
front. So the beginning of the house, which is the block work and all of these regular rough work, it's normally the cheaper phase of the work because the finishing. All right, let me say something. If you're doing a real nice house, a kitchen cabinet can run you over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Your bathroom, a master bathroom, if you go overboard, can run you anywhere near to $1 million. That's just 2 places in your house, just to show you what can happen. So the finishes on your house is far more expensive. So some of the more expensive things are like roofs and finishes. So my advice to persons, don't get carried away when you're castle decking and yeah man, your house that look like house now. and you think, oh, my house finished, so I have a whole lot of money left, I can start doing things that I don't. That wasn't in the budget. So stick to the budget and make sure that you follow through. When your house is finished, if you have money left, well, kudos to you. That's a beautiful project. It's time now for you to spend some money to do whatever you want to do to the house. But stick to your budget as much as possible and make sure you follow through. One of the other things that I've seen persons do is purchase the wrong property. Purchase the wrong property.
Purchase the wrong property?
Yes, I see that on your face.
Mm-hmm.
What you call the wrong property? All right. If you go to Red Hills and you start purchasing one of those lands because they have view and all of these things, and yeah, man, it looks good and the view look nice, but you don't realize that the slope is so bad. You need to build retaining walls before you can start building the house. No, you realize that the money you have to build your house can't even afford the retaining walls. No, you purchase the property already because if you look so good. So first and foremost, you need to know if you can afford to build on that lot. So if you purchase the wrong property, you might have a major problem. I must tell you, I've seen a customer who purchased a property up what's the name of that place again? One of those hills. Up on top of Malibu, one of those hills. And she sold her house to build this dream house. The money she got from her house could barely finish the stone wall, and some of her house reached the lintel height. It was so bad, she started getting out of her mind.
No.
Well, it wasn't my customer. I met her after all of that happened. Somebody recommended me to her to kind of help her through the process. So I have seen some horror stories. So I'd say, don't purchase the wrong property. Don't get carried away because there's a view and things looking nice, so you think you can afford. Make sure you can afford to build on the property which you purchase. The other thing, it might be a soil type. If you ever goes to Upper St. Andrew and some of those properties up there that you would need to dig a foundation 10, 15, 20 feet down before you can start even lay one block. You might realize that your little money that you have in your pocket can't even do the foundation, but yet you had a piece of land and you're dreaming of building your dream house. So look at what you have, look at what you can afford, and do the right thing, because it will leave you in a nightmare. And so we have to make sure that we do what we can afford. One other thing we need to do is one other mistake I see persons make is they get contractors, and sometimes these contractors are good contractors, and they will try their utmost best to get the contractors to do some things which are illegal. Say, for instance, build over the boundaries.
Okay.
Boundaries don't mean the boundaries of your land, because you buy a piece of land which is 60 feet wide. It doesn't mean you can build your house 60 feet wide.
The setbacks.
Yes, I would call them easements or setbacks. That has to be left. And so, for instance, a customer might look and say, no, man, but maybe want my bedroom bigger than this. So, me have one land at the front yard, man. Move and then some contractors might be so simple that they fall to it and follow through. But then when the problem starts, because say, for instance, there's a visitation at the parish council, that property is going to be stopped or somewhere along the line. And I bet you the contractor is going to be the person that gets the blame. So these are some of the mistakes. The other thing I see happening is that persons will employ somebody qualified to do their house. And once you get out the foundation and reach, yeah man, lintel, that lintel, yeah man, we can finish it now. So you get rid of the contractor and they take it on. And that is when the problem starts. There's, you hand it to a little man who all him can do a lay block. Him don't even have the block them square, lean or level. And they hand it to him, and at the end of the day, all right, go back to a client, a person I know. Same thing. the same person I tell you about that I had to rescue from that horror story. She took away everything, went back to a liquor man, and when the house was partially finished, the windows that they buy could not fit in the window way because the top of the window was measuring 4 feet and the bottom of the window was measuring 4 feet 3 inches. And the contractor saying it's not his fault. So you see, so make sure you have people who are qualified, who know what they're doing, because it can be a real nightmare. So it's best to find yourself a good contractor, a reasonable one who you can work with, and work with him and work through your construction phase. It might be the best thing for you. Give him the nightmare and you leave it alone.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Dawkins. Thank you. All right, so now we have our question and answer session. So you'll see that in the chat, and for those of you watching the recording, in the description box below, I would have listed all of our presenters' contact details, as well as the link to join the Homebuyers Bootcamp WhatsApp group. It's not a committee, Christine. It's not a group where people will be talking constantly. It's strictly a group so that it's easily accessible for me to just send you information as it relates to your home ownership process, whether you're buying a house or you're choosing to buy land and building on it. All right. So here we have Christine. Go ahead. Unmute yourself and speak, Christine.
Sorry, didn't realize I was still muted. Sorry about that. Quick question for Mr. Dawkins. He made mention of an individual purchasing the wrong land, right? Now, I see somewhere and I like the place. How do I determine if this land is the correct land? Is it the contractor who you ask to have a look at it? Who is it that you speak with to determine that you're indeed buying the correct land?
All right. Basically, if the contractor is experienced, he could be a good person to talk to. The draftsman or the person doing the drawing of the plan, they also can guide you. And they will tell you that for me to do this drawing, it's going to cost this. So the draftsman can literally give you an idea of what this house is going to cost you at the end of the day. Not that it's going to be a 100%, but at least he can look at you and say, this house from experience when costs you nothing under $20 million to build. No, you know that you cannot afford $20 million. Don't trouble that property. I have a client who, the other day, there was a nice development up in Red Hills. Pretty view, beautiful. When I go up there, you could fly off to Kingston. And he took me there and said, listen, man, I see a piece of land, I think I like it. Come with me, I don't purchase it. And let's look at it. When I went there, I looked at it and I said to him, I said, sir, the view is beautiful. It's lovely here. But let me explain to you. One, when you build a house here, you have no yard. You cannot walk around your house. So your house will be on some columns, and you're going to have at least 3-4 stories worth of columns that cannot be used. Because from the front column to the back one, you're not going to get 10 feet. So it's of no use. So all you're going to get is view. And when I explained all of that to him and show him, because he was thinking that the house can be literally almost on the side of the road. So he was saying, yeah, man, I can just drive out from the road, right? I said, no, there's something known as an easement. You have to step back from the road. When I started showing him where the house have to begin and where the house will end, he said, no, man, I don't think I want this. And he didn't purchase, and which to me makes sense because he was paying, the property was going for, I think, some $20-something million. And I'm sure he would have to spend at least the next $30 million before he could start building a house.
Wow. Does that answer your question, Christine?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
No problem.
You're welcome, Christine. All right. Questions, people. You see, for the other sessions, you notice I've been bringing the experts. You know what that means? Like I keep saying, there are limits to my knowledge, but guess what? My name it refers to wisdom itself. I love to apply knowledge. So guess what? This is the time for all of the questions and where you normally ask about construction or something there. You know, the design, all of these things. Please ask your questions. Ask them, people. And if you're scared to talk, type it. Just to remind you, we have Mr. Johan Wilson. Okay. Christine, go ahead. You have another question, seeing that they don't want to.
Yes, another question. Mr. Dawkins spoke to what was the term he used? Contingency. When an estimate is being done, there's a contingency amount that is given. Let me see if I understand exactly what this will entail or should entail. This most times when you get a builder / contractor to do construction, you will get an estimate for say 10 million, but halfway through the process, that 10 million now becomes 20 million or 15 million. And this is something that I have seen happen. And I'm really just a bit scared in terms of construction instead of buying a home. I would like to know, how do you avoid these pitfalls? And if the contingency should be what should take care of something like that. I don't know if I was clear enough.
Yes, I think you're clear enough. All right, first and foremost, your contingency can only be a percentage of the total cost. So if a contractor gives you an estimate for $10 million and give you a contingency for $5 million, that's a no-no. That's a red flag. You know that means a contractor don't know what he's doing straight off the bat. So it's a percentage of the total cost. So it can be 50%. So because what happened now, you're supposed to do a total estimate of the construction of the property. There are some things that is not seen, that cannot be seen. As I said before, we might be on a pretty flat land and we're doing an excavation, because most times it's things that you can't see. So we're doing an excavation, and while we're doing the excavation, we discover that there are some rocks here. Now we need to excavate through the rocks. It's more expensive to excavate rocks than earth. So therefore, we would have to speak to the person who's doing the excavation, whether it's a tractor or stuff, and come up with a costing to cut that rock. Now, where does that extra money comes from? It comes from the contingency. So say, for instance, it would cost $200,000 more. That money should come from the contingency. So it will probably your budget, because you have already over budget. When I say over budget, you have already have a contingency sum, which is literally what we could call an over budget or a safeguard for things not seen. So you could take that money from the contingency and pay that tractor man to do the foundation. So you wouldn't have to be having nightmares now that, Lord, I just spent 200,000 that I didn't plan to spend in the budget, and it's going to push me 200,000 more. So you use that money to do that. There are other things that can happen along the way where you need to spend extra money, because it's not very, very easy to be doing a project that values 10, 15, 20, 30 million dollars, and there is no little overruns here and there. All right, a next one. Somewhere along the line, there's a what you call a price raise. Don't remember the term, but price raises on cement, and we budget 100 bag of cement for something, Now the cement was $1,600 a bag. It turned $1,800 a bag. Where does that extra money comes from? So it's to safeguard the owner and the contractor so that the project don't really run out of money. That's what it's really for. Because as I said before, you want a budget, you want to do a budget, and when your house finish, you are supposed to within budget or below budget. Nobody want to overrun their budget on a property because 90% of the persons who's doing a property is going to do it from a mortgage. Now, when you go to the bank and you work out a mortgage, and the maximum mortgage you can get is $50 million. Now your project on $70 million. $2 million is a lot of money on the project because your house might be to see it where you just need to start putting some window and doors and you can't put in the window and doors. And then now you end up with a mortgage paying for the house and a rent paying somewhere else. While if you had done the proper estimates, you could move into your house. And even if you move into your house and it never tile, at least you could have finished tile it. But when you don't have any windows and doors, you can't move it. So
Right, it's like airtime.
you want to make sure that you come as close as possible to complete. And completing is one of the best things in the construction phase. So one thing I said to persons, don't fight the contractor to get the best price. So persons will say, all right, I might give you an estimate for $10 million. And next man give you an estimate for $8 million. But yes, everybody run to the $8 million one because yes, man, it sounds good. $2 million man, I save. But who tell you you're going to save $2 million? You might just reach $7 million. Because most time these persons who is doing these things, they know the $8 million can't do it. But when they carry you to $8 million and you can't finish it, them gonna left you. Who you left with the house? It's your house. You get left with an unfinished house. So what you need to do, get qualified person, honest people who will tell you the truth. And sometimes what I do with my client, I said to you, what's your budget? And most persons look at me funny when I ask them that. I said, no, don't tell me to do an estimate on this. Because if I do the estimate and it comes to $20 million and you only have 10, you're wasting my time and your time. What's your budget? When you tell me your budget, tell me you plan to spend anywhere between $5 and $7 million. Then I know what I'm working with. I can now advise you what you can get for your money. Because it doesn't make sense for me to tell you a pretty story and then somewhere along the line, we start having problems. So my ultimate goal, once you start your property, you need to finish. You need to have peace of mind. So it's best to get a proper budgeting done. As my former colleague said, get a bill of quantities. Most times we ask you that to get it from an independent source. So it's neither the contractor nor somebody like that. So you get from an independent source. They would tell you, they'll give you a real figure and try to use it as a guideline, even if you're trying to save some money. But at least you know that, all right, the QS said the house going to cost $12 million. So, all right, I'm going to budget $12 million. When I do the $12 million budget, I'm going to work the $12 million now to see if I can come out at 9 or 10 or 11.
All right, we have some questions coming in the chat. And also, I just want to remind you, I know that because we ended on the contractor, so it seems like you just keep on and send all the questions to Mr. Dawkins. Remember, we have two other panelists in the room. We have our architectural technologist, Mr. Omar Hibbert, and we also have Mr. Johan Wilson, our commission land surveyor. So people don't get sidetracked. Like you're just focusing on the last person who spoke, okay? So now we have Mr. Hibbert. Go ahead, your hand was up, Mr. Hibbert.
All right, so I just wanted to add, to add to what Mr. Dawkins said. The estimate starts from the design of the building. So you have a land, say 12,000 square feet or a quarter acre, and your budget is say 70 million. You would go to an architectural technologist, a designer, have them propose a design that suits your personality. That's what we do. and your budget. So things to consider are open floor plan, ample rooms for satisfying the client's needs, the stakeholders' needs. Say you want 6 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms, what size will it be? Is it a 12 by 12 or is it a 15 by 20? Do each bedroom have its own closet and bathroom? That's another thing to consider. Do you have a powder room at the front of the building? Do you have an office or a study? Do any of the bedrooms have a little study space? So it's a little bit bigger than normal to accommodate a growing child. Say, for instance, a teenager having their own study space. So the budget will start from the design concept. So the architect would propose a design and provide, well, what I do is provide 3 dimensions. So this is another name for 3D, where we provide a realistic view of what the final product can look like. And based on what the client's needs are, we design to suit that. There are instances where we cannot design based on that because of the budget or because of zoning. So for scheme developments usually require a restriction of around 4 to 5 feet perimeter around the lot. So you cannot build outside of that distance to the boundary line. So we'd have to consider designing within that sphere. Now, the size of the property will be decided based on that restriction. The look also of the design is based on the scheme. So some schemes require a certain look. If it's outside of a scheme, there are zoning laws also. So I did a project up in Belvedere where the client purchased a lot, good sized lot. They initially wanted to have a 6-bedroom property and a pool to the back. Now, the drawing was done to accommodate all of that. What happened when she allowed the contractor or the tractor person to dig the site? She was not on the site, or she did not have a foreman who would have supervised that process. Right. So what happened is that the tractor man just digged a slope going up to the top of the back of the property, and then that was it. So she spent a lot of money doing that. What happened? She had to go again to get another tractor person to dig exactly what is it that she initially had designed. So that's another cost for her. So it's not just to have the contractor build it. It starts from the first get-go, the building team. The building team is very important, and it's good to have a good relationship with the building team. Your surveyor, the architect who would design based on what your budget can afford, while also allowing for the design to satisfy your needs and reflect your personality. The contractor will have to be considered in this also. Also the quantity surveyor or the person who do the estimate. So it's not just the contractor and the builder. The entire team must be in sync or in dialogue for a smooth process and successful building design.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Hibbert. So our question in the chat. Good day, Shay from Shay. Good day. Mr. Dawkins mentioned a point about knowing the particular soil type when building a home. Could he elaborate a bit further on the key things we can look for in selecting a building site as it regards knowing the soil type, the type of soil?
All right.
Alicia, mute. Okay, thanks.
All right. Again, I must say, sometimes the purchaser don't know, we don't have the expertise to say, well, this is good or this is not good and stuff like that. So my idea is, once you're planning to build a home, have someone who you can call on and talk to about what you're planning to do. All right. it's just this week, just to show you how some persons forward thinking. It's just this week, a gentleman who I know sent me a picture and said, I see this property, I like it, and I'm thinking of buying. This is the third property that this gentleman sent to me. He sent me one before. I said to him, don't touch that because I kind of have an idea of your budget, and I give him the ins and outs of what to expect when he purchased that property, because it was all stones, and I know he's a young man just get married. He's not up to that kind of thing. So I explained all of that to him. He said, no, not touching that one. He sent me a next one, and this one was a little distance. It's a little remote, and I know all he has is him and his wife. I said to him, the price might be good here, and yes, it might be good to buy this property because of the cost of it. But when you're out and you go on vacation and your wife might be at home, will she feel comfortable being at home alone in the night at this house? And he stopped and he said to me, whoa, I didn't think of that. I said, yes, you have to think of all of these things. Because if your wife is afraid at where you build the house, she's not going to stay there when you're not there. So it means if anywhere you are at 6 o'clock, you're going to have to run, go home. So you have to think about your safety and all of these things. So you have to think about, all right, soil. One of the challenges of soil is, I don't know if most persons ever go to Upper St. Andrew and see the soil, what it looks like. It's basically sand. And for you to do a proper structure, yes, there are houses that are built in that neighborhood. And houses can be built there. Yes, houses can be built there. But what is going to cost you to build a house there? So you might see a property selling, a land there selling for $2 million. And you say, yes, man, $2 million sounds good. But you don't realize that in order to start your house, you might have to spend $7 million. No, it's $7 million plus $2 million. All right, just to give you an example of mistakes that can be made. I'm doing a project right now for a gentleman, and he bought a property, very flat land, nice land, everything. It was fenced, and he think it was a good deal. Right after the hurricane, a whole side of the fence collapsed. And it's a long fence, about, I think it's 105 feet long, one side, and it's 4 sides. One side of the fence collapsed. He called me, and when I went there and looked at it, we had to excavate over 400 feet of fence before we could even start anything. It cost him over $6 million just to excavate and to build a fence. Now, if he had paid $2 million for the project, for the land, imagine how much more. Because what? The soil type is bad. The soil is clay, and the proper steel work wasn't done for the wall to hold up. So every time rain falls and the soil gets soft, the fence keep leaning over until eventually it collapse, sometimes during the hurricane. And so that is why I said soil type is important. The person who drew that property, they had to put in some large what we call column footing to hold in. One building, which is just about, it's about 60 by 63. We use 70 yards of concrete just for the foundation alone. You know how much money that is? So the land looks good, it looks fine, but the construction process is far too expensive. So it's good to always talk to somebody who have the expertise. You have an architect, you're going to build a house. Talk to him. I know this person is not asking anything about the land surveyor, but let me tell you what can happen. There's a gentleman I know right now, he's overseas and he asked somebody to build a house for him, somewhere down in St. Anne. And when he comes home, half of his house is over the other man's property. Because he did not use a land survey. He said he don't need it. He knows those boundaries and everything. He came, showed the gentleman the land, and went back home. I had an experience the other day. I was lining out a house, and where I thought the boundaries were, because at the back of the land there was 3 pegs. Normally it is 2. It's just a normal thing. It's 2. Most times it's 2. This one was 3. Now, when we were lining out the house, luckily I realized that no man, something not adding up here. The measurements, and I called the owner. I said, "Listen, you need to come on site." When he came and showed me the other peg somewhere in the bush, we realized, no, what if I instructed him, get a surveyor to survey your property. If he didn't do that, then I don't know what would have happened. So all of this is important. It might look like you're spending, I'm going to spend 300,000 or 200,000 or 100,000 to pay a surveyor. We don't need to spend that. It's cheaper than putting up a house, spending $1 million and have to hit it down. It's far cheaper. The right thing, it saves money in the long run and saves you a lot of headache.
All right, so don't cut corners. All right, so do we have any further questions again for those who have joined late?
Yes, Sophia, I have a question. All right. What I want to know is this is for Mr. Hibbert. If somebody bought a property and the previous owner started the architectural design to remodel the property, would that plan still be in effect, or the person have to redo a new plan? The house that the person purchased have up beams and stuff. So I've seen like the previous owner was going to do some addition and the beams are up and everything, but is it that the person would have to go do over a new plan, or is that this plan at some office or some agency already?
All right, so in this case, my experience is that if someone, a home buyer purchases a land that has a structure on it which is not complete, some instances, if the new home buyer probably wants to make a change to the design, even though they may have a plan, an approved plan. Some persons would probably want to redesign for their personal touch to the design. Now, the case is if they intend to use the design that was approved, then they would not need to go through any design phase. They would only need to visit the parish council, have the drawing file revisit that drawing file, and that would be for the parish council to notify the community that construction will be taking place on this property. So usually what happens before that, the drawing goes through a process of up to 3 months, 90 business days, building approval process, up to 90 business days. And once the approved drawing has been handed over to the client or clients, usually they have 6 months to start construction. So in different phases of the construction, a building officer would come and visit the site. So the first visit would take place at the foundation, at the steelwork, to ensure that the structure is designed with the right amount of steel and the right size. So Mr. Dawkins mentioned that the footing has to be a certain size depending on the type of soil. That will be discussed or identified during the early phases of the discussion with the building team, whether it's your surveyor or the architect. Some architects work with a contractor or an engineer, a civil engineer. So they will do soil testing. So once that is satisfied, you continue with the construction. So the building officer will visit the site when the steelwork is being done. The next time the building officer will visit the site is at the decking. So that's the steelwork again to ensure that the structure can support itself and withstand or mitigate against hurricanes, for example, or earthquakes. So the next time that the building officer will visit, so usually it's about 3 visits. The foundation, the decking, that is if it's for a single story, But if it's for 2-story, ground floor and first floor, they will also visit again for the roof. Now, you mentioned that the new building owner, if they have to go back through, no, they don't. Once the drawing has been approved by the parish council, if they like what was designed initially, they can proceed without revisiting the municipal office for revision. Usually, my case is some clients want to add their personal touch, so they'll get a designer, an architect to do a remodel. So in that case, the architect will discuss with the client what it is that they like to change. And if the design is within the scope or the size or area of the existing building that was approved, then they would not need to revisit the municipal council. However, if they plan to go beyond what was initially designed, so they're adding square footage to the building, then they will need to visit the municipal council. So they'd have to draft a new plan if they're going outside of the existing square footage, send it to the municipal council for building approval. Once they get that approval, then they follow through the steps. And at the phase of construction, they can proceed. So let me just reiterate. If the building is within the scope of the initial design, they don't need to go to the municipal council. If they want to add their personal touch, as long as it's within the original square footage that was approved, they can build. If it's going beyond, so they're doing additional spaces to the existing design, then they need to visit the municipal council so that the architect would redesign and do another submission for building approval.
Okay, thank you. And the previous approval does not have an expiry date?
Well, if it's usually the municipal council gives up to 2 years to complete the structure. If it's not complete within that period, then the owner would have to visit the municipal council and apply for an extension. That usually come at a cost, minimal cost, less than, last time I checked, less than $8,000 for them to open that file and have it, just to open it and have it on the notification for the building inspectors to visit the site to ensure that it is complete and built as was designed.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's not a problem for the new owner to access these things, although they didn't pay for it. As a new owner, the person can just go to the municipal council, as I said, and access this information.
All right, in terms of the drawing, because the drawing was submitted by another party, so this now requires legal matters. So a lawyer will have to come in, and this lawyer will be, remind me, Mr. Long, real estate lawyer, right? So a real estate lawyer will have to come in.
Conveyancing lawyer, attorney. We had Miss Cavell Johnston on.
Right.
some weeks ago.
Right. So a lawyer will have to come into play and to actually remove the name of a previous homeowner and add the new prospective owner to that title. So it's not just to go into the municipal council and request the drawing. There are some legalities that has to be observed before you move forward.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hibbert. Thank you.
Sure.
Can I add something to that Mr. Hibbert just said? One thing I must say to the person who is thinking of carrying on that construction, my recommendation, get somebody qualified to go there and check that construction, that it was being done properly. before you continue. One, say for instance, you need to make sure the steel work was being done properly. A person might say, how do we know if a steel work was done properly when concrete is over it? Yes, we can do. We can cut back the corners of the columns and check back to see if the proper work, steel work was done. Say for instance, we now use 3/8 steel to build stirrup instead of quarter wires. So we check to see that that was done properly. The other thing that I would recommend is that sometimes these constructions have been stalled for so long that the exposed steel started to oxidize, what you call rotting. The exposed steel started to rotten, and then persons might just see this and say, oh, it's okay, I can continue to build. That's a danger. So I would suggest that once you see, say, rusty steel that is badly damaged, it would be good to get a little expert ideas before you continue, because you don't want to spend $10 million from there and then you start having problems. So get some expert advice before you start your continue. That's my take on that.
Thank you very much.
So true, because we have, especially up in the hills, we have a whole lot of uncompleted buildings. Well, all over Jamaica, we have a whole lot of uncompleted buildings with the steel and everything rotting away. So, any further questions? Remember, we have in the room our commissioned land surveyor, Mr. Johan Wilson. We also have our architectural technologist, Mr. Omar Hibbert, and of course, our contractor, Mr. Rohan Dawkins. So remember, ask the questions because I'm your realtor associate of choice, of course, for all your real estate needs. But I always cede to the experience and the wisdom of the experts in the respective fields. So please ask your questions. I won't be able to answer them. As it relates to their fields. Not as well as they can respond to you, especially for those of you thinking of building your own home. Here is when you ask the questions. Like I say, if you're scared to open your mouth and talk, type. I'll read it. All right. Not seeing anything in the chat just yet. Okay, yes, and Shay had said, well, thank you for your response and insight. Well, Dr. Dawkins should be in prophetic. Elder, Dr. Dawkins. He's not hearing. We're probably still muted. So type your questions in the chat or ask them. Remember, I can tell you about the real estate markets in Jamaica and all of these things, but when it comes to construction and the legal side and the mortgages and so forth, I always bring in the experts. And while I'm waiting for questions to come in, on this upcoming Friday, that's January 31st at 4:30, we'll have an NHT representative here to discuss the different loan programs that are available through the NHT and how you can access them. Of course, make sure that you join the Homebuyers WhatsApp group, Homebuyers Bootcamp 2025 WhatsApp group. I've shared a link in the chat here, and for those of you watching the replay, look in the description box below. You'll see the link. You just click on it. It's totally legit, and you will be in the group. Again, this group is not anything that it's a whole lot of discussion back and forth. It's strictly for announcement purposes only, so you don't have to worry about joining yet another WhatsApp group, and then it's going to be too many notifications. Okay? Let me check the chat again. All right, not seeing any questions. Can I take it that our three gentlemen presented so well, you have no questions at all? All right. And of course, I've shared the contact details for each of our presenters. And if again you're watching the recording, their contact details will be in the description box below. All right, so I'm not seeing any further questions coming up. So I thank you, gentlemen, so much for spending the time on this very lovely Sunday afternoon that you've taken away from family, friends, all the other things you could be doing on a wonderful Sunday afternoon to come and share your expertise. I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much, Mr. Johan Wilson, our commissioned land surveyor, also Mr. Omar Hibbert, our architectural technologist, and also Mr. Rohan Dawkins, our contractor. Thank you so much. And you're most welcome, Kalisa. She's saying, thank you very much, Sophia, for this wealth of real estate information. Thank you very much to everyone. All right, so I believe that is it. So if I could just have our Jesuit to come in and just wave goodbye and any parting words as we close off this session.
This doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing now, but it's still in the realms of purchasing or owning a house. My thing is I must advise persons, once you're going to do investment, get advice from qualified person. In other words, old time, we used to buy a car, we walk with a mechanic. You're thinking of a house, walk with a contractor. You see a house that you like and you plan to buy it or something, walk with him. Because you'll be surprised to know, if I walk with you through a house that you're about to buy, I can show you some stuff that you don't see. I remember a gentleman was about to purchase a house because the house needs a little construction. And when I walked through it, I said to him, this house needs a lot of work. And he said, no, my people live in there. I said, yes, it needs a lot of work. But he likes the house. He liked the property. So I said to him, I'm going to give you some tools. When I said tools, I'm going to show you the cons of the house. Use these to bargain the price. And when I showed him all of that and he used it, he got $2 million off the house. And then that money that he saved, the NHE gave it back to him, and it was enough to do his renovations. So use the experts that you have around you, use their knowledge, because it can save you a lot of money.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Dawkins. So, okay, Mr. Hibbert, closing words.
All right, so it's always good to start from the top. If you intend to purchase a land, start with a realtor. And if you're gonna be working with a realtor, I would advise also get an architect or an engineer, and they will provide expert advice on matters concerning the type of soil, as Mr. Dawkins mentioned, the view, the easement. As a surveyor also would tell whether there is any encroachment on your property. Or for instance, if it's a farmland, I had a recent experience where I did a design for someone. The land was initially farmland. There were no restrictions in terms of the future development for the land, but they had more than one property on the land. So the person had the mother having per unit, and they wish to build a unit for themselves. So because there are two properties on the property, they had to get a zoning. The correct term is to partition the land. Partition the land, so his mother would have her section and he have his own section. So things like these, the designer or the surveyor can provide guidance and advice on.
Okay, great. Okay, and Mr. Johan Wilson, closing thoughts?
Yes, it was a pleasure being here. I'm picking up on what Omar just said. What they would need is a subdivision to be done, because later down in the future, each party might need a title for their piece of property so that you can do your business with it. So I think in that regards, and especially for farming lands, you have to rezone them. So farming, residential, you have to rezone those things, and sometimes surveyors come into play, or you can work with a planner in that regards for the rezoning purposes. As was mentioned before, you need a realtor, and you have a good one there, right here, that is hosting us. And
Thank you.
then utilize your professionals, please. Please do. Even if you just have to come and say, all right, I have the money to pay you for doing a design, but just come with me to buy back your gas. At least you know what you're getting yourself into. Instead you go spend your money and then you start pull out your hair out of your head. Please just utilize the professionals.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. And a late question as I come in the chat, someone was asking about who the go-to should be if you're thinking of buying land. He came into the room late, so we had covered that, and Mr. Dawkins had said he had given numerous examples of clients coming to him and saying, hey, I'm thinking of purchasing this land, what can be built on it? And he accompanied them. So I had responded in the chat, your contractor, but you had come in late. All right, so I believe that is it. We have spent a very good time here, and I hope that you are enjoying the recording as well. So thank you so much for being with us this evening or whatever time you're watching this recording. And of course, please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, all the things to this YouTube channel, Real Estate with Sophia. And of course, the link is down below for you to join our Homebuyers WhatsApp group. Again, it's just for announcement purposes, so you won't be bombarded with notifications from this group. And furthermore, most importantly, all of the contact details for our presenters this evening, they're all in the description box below. If you're here in Zoom, they're all in the chat. All right. So I believe that is it. And bye until we meet again on Friday with our NHT representative.